All right, it's 4 p.m. and we're going to start the, day is it? February 10th meeting of the Kingston Board of Water Commissioners. I'm going to pass it out to the vice chair since I'm on Zoom in Minnesota, and I'll just be participating remotely.
Accept the motion to approve the minutes of January 13th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 13th.
Second? All those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
I would accept the motion to approve the minutes of January 29th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 29th, 2026.
Second?
Second.
Aye.
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 Appointments, Kristen, you on?
Okay, very good.
There you are.
Yes, I was just muted, just for some background noise, but you can let me know if there's any issues. The updates I have for the new well project, Chris and I met with Kleinfelder and Mar Services last Friday, and to go over the additional site work that Mar Services was requesting, and to just express the challenges with having to, go back out and keep making changes, try to figure out what else can be done. So for the time being, there's limited access to the site just because of the snow, especially where the access to the site is off of 44. So right now, all the snow that's pushed off of 44 is in the way. And then obviously getting down into the site is tough. For now, there's going to be a follow-up field meeting on February 20th, potentially weather dependent, for Chris to meet with Mar Services, both the writer who he'd already met out there, but also the operator of this rig. That's the one that had concerns with getting down into the site and back out. Their concerns being there's a crest where they believe the rig will get hung up on when they're trying to come back out. So essentially, there's the way their axles are, there's one in the middle that they think will get stranded, and then the front and the back of it will be up off the ground, and it would just be, stuck there. So that's why they were hoping to get that cut. But clearly right now the ground's frozen, and it's not as simple as just cutting away ground. You have to do some shaping, and also be able to physically get equipment into the site to do that. And right now, there's those blockages with the snowbanks. So that's still to be worked out. And once everything can get situated, they just need 3 days for the actual test well installation, and then they can proceed to the pump testing of that test well. Chris, do you want to add anything to that discussion?
No, I don't. I'm just looking at the calendar now. I'm not available on the 20th. I'll be out of town on the 20th.
Oh, okay.
And I think that we're still going to be impeded by the snow. And we just got another 8.5 inches of snow on Saturday.
Yeah, and there might be more.
And we're looking at another 2 to 4 tonight. So
okay.
I don't think he's going to improve in a week's time to allow us to get in there other than on foot. And that's a pretty long walk through 2 feet of snow. Yeah,
I agree. It seemed unlikely that anything could really happen this month, even with the next week and a half. Temperatures are getting above freezing, but it's not significant enough. We need to have some weather that's over freezing at night to really make a good impact in the snow and ice that we have right now.
Yes, I would agree.
So we're just going to keep touching base.
Probably talking about 2 to 3 weeks before you'd even be close to being able to get in there and do anything that is of a constructive nature, so that it does what mine needs to do to get the rig in, but also once you start doing that, you're basically setting up the parameters for not only the test well, but, the beginning of the construction of the whole system. So we need to do it right the first time, and, had Mark given us the information before, we wouldn't have had that problem. We would have still had the problem with the screen, which would have ultimately ended up with the same issues that we have now. So.
Right. And that didn't cause any delay. But, if it makes you feel any consolation, they have their equipment in on the site right now, and it's just stranded there because it's trapped by the snow and the ice. So,
So
them
there's
not
motivation to get it done. I see.
Right.
Okay.
Them not communicating what they needed for Chris to be able to get the site improvements done the way they needed has now prevented them from getting that work done, getting their rig out of there. So, yeah, too bad. So they are,
They're as
it's,
anxious as we are.
Yes.
yeah, to get it done and get their equipment out of there. So I think at least we have their attention. So we have their equipment out there. So we're going to just keep meeting about that and reevaluating so it doesn't linger too long, or we can minimize that as much as possible. So that's that. The next item, the grant update for the M36 water audit. I reached out to Mass DEP, to the person that facilitates that program, and she said that they just made a selection for the consultant that's going to be doing those on their behalf. And they were going to be making that announcement any day. I think, she just has to get the approvals from all the right parties at DEP before they can say, here's the consultant. Now let's talk to the different water suppliers about getting the work done. So that is moving forward. That was good to hear. The next item, the water conservation bylaw discussion, that's to do with the consent order. And I went through and looked at what you had right now, which is in the bylaws, speaks to water emergencies. So it's not what I was thinking. I was thinking of the old Mass DEP template that the town never, elected to implement because we weren't required to. It was just kind of something that if you wanted to, you could do. So right now it's just, the current bylaw is just a very small paragraph giving the board of water commissioners the ability to declare a water emergency, which is different from a state of water conservation. So in some ways that makes it easier. We're not looking to change a current bylaw. So I sent Chris and Stacy a draft template of some language that could be incorporated. And I'm not sure if it needs to be a bylaw or just a rules and regulations type thing. So Stacy forwarded it on to town council to get their opinion about that.
You did send it on town council?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the one thing that sort of bothers me about this, if you read through what we've been given, it talks about a water supply conservation, and it talks about ponds, rivers, and wetlands. Since basically our water supply comes out of artesian wells, not out of ponds, rivers, or wetlands, I'm not sure one sort of actually does what we want it to do or what the AOC wants it to do.
It's just a template suggestion, so it can be marked up to customize it. There was a bunch of language that I already removed because it didn't apply at all for you guys. So it's certainly something that it's just a place to start that they're offering. So it can be marked up. And then I would just say whatever we end up with for once you go through it, once town council goes through it, then before it gets enacted or voted on, would just send it to DEP to say, this is what we're doing moving forward. Want to make you aware of it. And, just see if they have any final comments before it actually gets done.
One of my other concerns is that we have a very active and not necessarily in the best interest of the water department. We have a very active conservation commission that likes to put further restrictions on any open land. When we start talking about water supply conservation or its designee, we need to be very careful that we're talking about the Kingston Water Department and a designee of the Kingston Water Department having nothing to do with the Kingston Conservation Commission.
Yes, that's one of the things that's in this particular bylaw. It just says water users or customers. So it's not, it's specific. DEP has an alternate language that can be incorporated to pull in anyone who's using water in town, whether they're on town water or not. So this one that you're looking at is specific to water customers of the town public water supply system.
Again, my concern is there may be other people in town that would like to broaden that so that other committees or departments could declare this without the water department being involved.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm concerned that we do a water ban and the town ignores it for irrigation of fields that kids to play on and stuff like that.
Well, there's an exception in here that allows recreational, fields. If you read through it, my concern is that we have people who would say, Jones River is drying up. We need to enact this because Jones River is drying up. Jones River has really nothing to do with the pumping of water for the town of Kingston for the residents. So I want to make sure that whatever we do, this apparatus is restrictive enough so that it's just the water department that's doing this, and it's not taking outside interest and putting it into a decision that this board would make.
So who should mark this up, you or Kristen? Because obviously we need some adjustments to this.
Yeah, I think collectively it might be a good thing. I mean, like I see what you're saying, but you don't want to take and penalize or inconvenience the cranberry growers that use the ponds, because you're talking about surface water for irrigation and stuff.
We're dealing with strictly the Kingston Water Department and what we're drawing out of the aquifer through artesian wells. We're not dealing with surface water in any way, shape, or form.
Correct.
No, and if people have a private well, it doesn't include that.
Well, there are some people who have private wells who will want to pay a lot more attention to this than maybe Bob or I.
Yeah, and so that's, something that another town department could take on with, whether it's public health or conservation. But for what you're responsible for, it's just your water customers. So DEP is not expecting you to become the, water conservation authority for every water body or in the town, every, any well, or if it's not a public water supply water customer, then it's outside of this water conservation bylaw.
So should there be a real compelling drought like we had in California a few years ago? And we looked at the situation and said, we can't have any outside water use. Who can stop the people that have irrigation systems that are hooked up to their private well? Could that be the Board of Health that could stop that?
Right now, no one. There's nothing that would give the town the authority to do that. So, like the town
coming out of a similar place, not the exact place that the wells are.
But I don't think you want to cloud the issue by looking at what's happening to private wells that are using water for either domestic purposes or for irrigation.
Of course, should we get that kind of catastrophic drought, we could always call a meeting and declare a water emergency and ask the town to put in an impediment against using irrigation.
It just becomes difficult with, who's policing that when they're not water customers. It wouldn't technically be the water department. So the state does have a template that could have water bans on private well customers. DEP would love to see that in place for, every town across the state, but they recognize that for the water suppliers, whether it's, water department or water district, it's not within your power to restrict private well water uses. And yes, the water is coming from pretty much the same place. It's coming from the aquifer. So for most towns, I only know of a couple that have implemented a bylaw to restrict private well water usage during times of conservation. But it's a town restriction. It's not just a water department, water commissioner restriction.
Would it be possible for you to give us a copy of one of those so we have something to look at? I don't see us doing this in the near future or maybe ever, but should the circumstance present itself, I'd like to see what kind of language towns that have actually done that use.
I'll send you the template. DEP has two templates. They have one that was based off of the template that I sent you, that focuses on the water customers of the water department. And then they have a second template that has these added, restrictions in there.
I guess I would like to look at it before we have an emergency. I don't want to be sitting here at a table at midnight trying to come up with a solution to a catastrophic problem and starting from scratch. I'd rather have some information already available that we could reference at least.
Okay.
My opinion is we don't want to go anywhere near that. You're asking for us to get knee deep in bullshit. And that's what it will be if, in fact, you start taking Conservation Commission deciding on whether or not somebody should be able to irrigate their.
I wasn't suggesting that it would be.
But it doesn't belong here. We're talking about the public water supply. If the town or the state decides it's that catastrophic, then the state should be implementing it. It shouldn't be and can't be the Kingston Water Department. We need to focus on what's within the bylaws that we can control. And the more you allow other people to voice their opinions on whether or not something's implemented or not, even this bylaw, if this gets to town meeting as a bylaw, there are going to be people who want to add more restrictions so that they can protect the fish that run up the river. My concern is I have a responsibility to anybody that turns a tap on that is hooked up to the Kingston Water Department. Beyond that, that's where it should stop.
I just think that people that have private systems are impacting the system that we're responsible for.
Not to any great extent.
That we know of yet. And I'm looking down the road that we have at least some knowledge.
Thank God I only got a year, because you can be so deep in shit with the Conservation Commission and Pine and the rest of those people who want to put restrictions on everything so that everybody has a brown lawn. Good luck to you.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it has to be specifically a bylaw or if it can be something that gets adopted into the rules and regs. So that was something like the language that DEP used was just ensuring the town has the authority to enforce the restrictions. So that's where town council needs to provide input on, can you have the authority if it's just adopted as a rules and regs versus a bylaw? So that makes it different if you don't have to have it a bylaw in front of town meeting and you can just adopt it as a rule and reg. So that's something that I think we're waiting to hear back on.
Yeah, Attorney Prevention wanted to make sure that we weren't going to further restrict ourselves and allow the town to be able to determine whether or not a bylaw gets passed. He wants to make sure that we are granted the authority, but he wants to make sure that any vote taken at town meeting is just an affirmative. What did he say? An affirmative vote to enact a rule or regulation, not the dead yes or no to put it in place. Is that what you understood? That's how I'm reading it. Kristen?
Yeah, I wasn't really clear on what he was saying.
Yeah, I know. I had to read it a couple of times to break it down, but I think that's
It's
where
kind of like it gives you the option, multifaceted options that you can take and go. You're not set steadfast on one particular way that you have to go. It gives you other avenues to enforce protection of the aquifer. And I think the biggest thing is, as Bud mentioned, that our main focus is to protect the aquifer of sustainable water supply to the residents and
Mhm.
existing customers. We can't be trying to control brooks and streams and ponds that dry up or get utilized for other things. Or someone's shallow well that they use for irrigating their lawn. I mean, if it's a private well that they put in that's a shallow well of poor water quality, it's going to have minimal impact on our aquifer and our sources.
The other problem we have, if in fact the water department starts talking about private wells and we tell people they can't use it, then we're taking a responsibility to figure out how they do get potable water. And, that's not what our responsibility are. Ours is what comes out of the tap.
Our,
Yeah.
our, our main concern is the quality and quantity of water for human
Absolutely.
consumption and fire protection.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with Bud's position that I think as much as we might want to try to be part of that solution, it'd be too much for us to really take on. I think we need state guidance, DEP guidance for if it gets to that point. We just stay in our lane.
The other thing that Kristen mentioned in this is we need to come up with a fine structure that is significant enough that it's prohibitive and not so large that it's discriminatory.
I think it'd be fair to see what other towns utilize as far as penalties go that they implement. I know that some towns it's a written warning, it's a monetary violation, and then it's shut off. So there's a lot of places that there's no second, third, fourth options.
Can we find out what the surrounding towns are doing?
And you got to sort of figure out, what towns are under AOC, control from DEP as well. And, are those fine structures a little bit more different than it would be if it's, a town implemented restriction? Do we have to be more restrictive and more cautious on how those violations are identified? Who does the identification and who does the penalties?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
and you have to,
particularly think that, any one of the members of the staff of the Kingston Water Department should be out issuing violation notices other than just the violation itself. And, whatever the implementation is or the fine structure is done through written documentation, not through something hung on the door.
I think
yeah,
it's
and whatever you do with the conservation's fine schedule, the current town bylaw does have a fine schedule for violating the water emergency. So just keep that in mind. What I think they should at least be equal. You don't want to have the fine schedule for the water emergency offenses being more lenient than if you violate the water conservation.
True.
So that would be something that would have to be changed in the bylaw.
And once we implement this, keeping with the AOC, we need to make sure that the information is put out through press release, whatever it is, so that each and every person in the town of Kingston understands that once we implement either a water conservation or a water emergency, these violations will be so noted and so collected through an administrative procedure. You know, our men aren't sworn police officers, don't have the equipment, nor the knowledge, nor the experience to start issuing written violation notices that have financial implications, as they knock on the door.
Is just I don't want to have problems with keeping the peace with residents that get irate
Yep.
over a monetary
Yep.
fine.
Yeah, and it's difficult to document often. It's something that really needs to be witnessed by the water department, so you'd go out there, you take a picture noting the time of the offense. If someone just calls in and says, oh, my neighbor was watering their lawn this morning and wasn't supposed to be, you can't go by that. So you have to draft up written standard operating procedures for how that would go about documenting the offenses as well.
You're absolutely right.
Yes.
It needs to be well documented, and photographic documentation is the preferred method. We should not be responding to phone calls because I don't like her, I don't like him, they don't like me, so what? If we document it and it's documented, then we can issue the appropriate penalty. But until we've got it documented, there is no penalty.
Yeah.
So to set the actual bylaw, we should wait till the three of us are here to do it. So we've had the discussion.
Yep.
We can kick the can down the road for a little bit until Bob's back, and we can then have another shot at discussing this with some information and come up with a bylaw. I think we get this bylaw implemented. We have a responsibility to do it.
Yeah, and in the meantime, just go through the draft that you have and just mark it up. And, then we can customize it more for something that works for the water department.
Okay,
Yeah.
and if you get any information from anybody that could be useful to us, you let us know. Because I only want to do this once. We do the new bylaw once, and then have it be right the first time.
Okay.
I mean, if the board could take their copies and mark it with your recommendations, and then Kristen and I can kind of consolidate things and put things together that make sense, I think is the best route to go, as the board, as the policymakers. I think that's be good, weigh in on it with your experience and your thoughts, and then we can collaborate.
The sooner the better. We have to present this at town meeting, so we've done it in the next month.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're working over the warrant now for the town
You
meeting.
always put a placeholder on the warrant for it, and we come up with the actual details by town meeting.
Yeah, but you do have to provide the details prior to town meeting.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, you done, Kristen?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Superintendent?
So let's see here. I reached out to the Styles Company, more often referred to as Reagan and Son. They have always done our meter calibrations for our large meters at the wells. I reached out to them to kind of get on their agenda and see what's going on for meter calibrations. Once the snow and the weather clears up, she's going to get some pricing together. She expected it would take, I told her what we had for meters, for the large meters, and she says it'd be 1, maybe 2 days or 1.5 days worth of work to come in and do those flow tests for those meters. So right now they're pretty open, so it's good that we're getting on their radar for that. I'll be following up with them in the coming weeks to really try to solidify some stuff with that. I mentioned to her that the focus would be the big meters, the meter pits right now, and then look at some of the other larger size commercial meters that are above ground.
But you can't do meter pits until the snow's gone, right?
No, it's pretty tough. With the cold temperatures, we don't want to do it in flow tests and icing things up.
Of course.
When you talk about large meters, what size meters are we talking about? We need to look at large meters sort of as it lays out in the AOC on what they were talking about as far as sizes of meters. So, are we talking about just extremely large ones, or are we talking about the ones that are beyond normal residential use as well, because we need to be looking at what the funding is to do this. Not only, is the meter, if calibrate's great, that's fine. If the meter has to be replaced, who is responsible for replacing the meter? Now, if we're replacing a meter that's a meter pit for, town and country, there's a substantial amount of money involved with that meter, I would assume,
Yes.
versus, a residential 3/4 inch meter. As we move forward and as we're trying to put together a budget for this, fiscal 2027, we need to have that in place. So we need to make sure that whatever Styles is doing, they're doing enough so that you're gathering the information that you need up front rather than trying to chase your tail down the line, because all of a sudden we realized that we didn't look at enough of the not extremely large, but the larger meters they would be looking at normally.
So right now is what I spoke to her was the meters, the 4 and 6 and 8, the big meters at Town and Country, the mobile
Yeah.
home parks.
Yeah.
To get an accuracy test on those for baseline to see where we go. Are they reading efficiently and accurately, or do they need to be rebuilt? Then we need a baseline to go to start with right now. And by getting a flow test done, that gives that baseline, we can build off of that, and whether it needs to be replaced, repaired, or whatever. And so this is the financially less burdening point that we have to start with a flow test. We can't just go and say we're going to replace it just to replace it. That's a cumbersome task. But if it's a matter of a flow test and they say, these parts typically wear and replace certain components, it's a much better way to go. We can budget for it once we identify any potential issues. We had a flow test on one of these meters 2 years ago, and it was right where it needed to be. There was no deficiencies found. So she was pulling that data up to see where that was, to be able to compare a couple of years ago to where we are now, to give us a good baseline. We're going to kind of start right at that particular site. It gives a baseline. In 2 years, your curve went way down or it stayed the same. So, but we need to get a baseline of where we stand with accountability.
The other thing we need to look at as we're moving forward with this is that the cost of repair versus the cost of replacement. Cost of replacement may be substantially more, but as you look down the line, does it make more sense to spend that money now to make sure that we get 100% accuracy and not worry about having to redo this again? Because if I remember right, the AOC wants you to do leak detection on a regular basis. If you got to do that, then you're basically looking at the same thing as far as recalibration. So there's a balance where, we can rebuild it for X and replace it for Y, but does Y really make more sense in the long term than?
No, I understand. Yeah, I mean, and that's what we're going to see is by getting the baseline of the flow test. Styles that's their field of knowledge and expertise. They can say this isn't worth replacing or repairing. It's worth replacing at this point.
What would you do with the larger than residential meters, say, 2-inch, a 2-inch meter? Would they be doing that as well?
Yes. Yep. So I spoke to them on that, and it's all on the ACO on the timeline on what size meters need to be calibrated in which time frames, and they want to start with the big meters and work our way back to the small meters, right? Because that's where your biggest deficiencies are going to be. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start with the big meters, not many of them, and then work our way back to some of the there's not very many 4-inch meters, and there's a lot of 2-inch, 1.5 meters that we'll get into. And that's a coordination thing with those establishments that the water needs to be shut off so we can conduct this test.
I wonder if that's where there's probably more water loss than with the bigger meters, because there's more of them. There's more of the 2-inch meters than there are the big ones.
There's not an overwhelming number of 2-inch meters or 1.5 meters. I think the biggest water, unaccountable water, to the residential meters.
Absolutely.
There's more. I've noticed over the years that they're much more subject to failure, to clogging, and failure to register, as opposed to the bigger meters, because they use such a volume of water. It scours everything. Yeah. It's clean. So the accuracy can go down through worn parts. So your tolerances get worn down, and you get water that seeps by that you don't want to go by. It's unregistered. So, but that's where we stand with that right now. So like I said, I'm just trying to gather information and see what's the best direction to go with. Any other questions on that?
Nope.
We just completed the quarterly reader meetings for this quarter. It proved to be a bit challenging with the amount of snow that was out there to read some of the meters that are outside in pits. Substantial amount of snow to move. Doing the radio reads, I noticed that I had to do several areas twice. I think that with the amount of snow and that signal trying to get out through the snow banks, snow run off the roofs, it proved a little more challenging. But I was able to spend more time than usual to collect those reads. So I think we're in good shape now, and Laurie and Stacy are in the process of doing that data entry to generate the bills. January 30th, the crew was alerted to a leak at Winter Street and Pembroke Street area. It was very cold that day. The guys got right out there. They were able to make a very timely repair. The guys did a great job with the limited resources. And
Is that during daylight?
yes.
Oh, thank goodness it was during daylight.
Yeah, it came in early in the morning. They got the call. They were able to take care of that safely with no issues. They did have an issue. They had a broken hydraulic line on the backhoe, but they were able to navigate around that and get things done. But the crew did a great job in the cold temperatures, so I commend them for that. Great job.
When they do something like that, I know you tell us about it. Is anything put into their personnel file that would indicate that under extreme conditions, and I'm not talking about just cold weather, normally working cold or plowing snow, if it's something that is sort of on the edge of really extreme, should we at least be putting something in their file so that, the next time we want to slap their hand, there's also something, in their file saying they did something over and above or beyond what.
You notice when you're doing things well as when you're not doing things.
I recognize them verbally and commend them, and gratitude and appreciation. It's not been a common practice to do anything of that sort. I mean, there's been years. I mean, the first year that I was here, we were out with freeze ups day after day after day. We would have had a file knee high. So it hasn't been a common practice.
I just think that it's something that, at least it shows that the board is recognizing the fact that they went beyond what would be a normal day's work and even an extreme day's work. That's
just an attaboy.
Yeah,
from us, because
if you guys
they're getting it verbally from you, from us, I think they should get an attaboy.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to generate a letter that I can read to them, or you can read to them, that's
it's just something you can hand to them, and it can go in their file, so it's just tucked away somewhere.
Yeah, that's totally up to you.
Yeah. I would make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second it.
So I'd like to grant just a letter of commendation.
I'm for it too.
The vote's 3-0.
Also, Leo has started. He's fitting in very well. He's hit the ground running. I think he's going to be a great fit with the guys. He's getting along with everybody. He's brings great enthusiasm and some good knowledge to the table that he's
excellent
getting right into it. So he's working out great. Also, we get the decision from the Housing Appeals Authority on regards to the May Ave Post Court with the proposed redevelopment of that area. The Housing Appeals decided to overrule the town to allow them to move forward with development down there. Still, there's more litigation set to come. The town is appealing that decision from the Housing Commission Authority, if I can call that correctly. So, don't know where that's going to go, but I think that careful discussion needs to take place if they do develop that with how that's served by water. So
again, it's still my opinion that I'm not opposed to the redevelopment of the area, But I think in order to provide adequate fire protection and potable water, the developer needs to install a new water main, as originally discussed. But we'll wait and see where that one goes,
Sure.
I guess.
One of the last thing, this past Friday, there was a house fire down on Lower Main Street,
Mhm.
down next to Gone Bananas, and there were 2 hydrants that failed at the time of the fire. One hydrant failed due to rusted, corroded fasteners that are beyond anything that we would recognize when we do maintenance or servicing of the hydrants, right at the ground level, just from overtime. And the hydrant has been in the ground since the 70s, and the bolts had failed. The other hydrant that had failed was due to some water that was in the barrel. The hydrant hadn't drained
So
completely,
it frozen.
so it had froze. So when they tried to open it, it snapped the hydrant off. Just safety flange got pushed apart. So got the crew right out there. They were able to repair one hydrant and had it back in service prior to the fire scene being cleared, and the other hydrant, it's got to wait for warmer temperatures to thaw that out. So
You think just honoring out will solve the problem,
yes,
or do you think it needs to be replaced?
I don't feel it needs to be replaced. I mean, we've had other hydrants that are a similar thing. We can usually unclog the drain. They get
Yeah,
clogged up
yeah.
with a little bit of rust. We can do ways we can deal with that. So, but I just want to make you aware of that. So, one other thing that Stacy brought to my attention just prior to the start of the meeting was that there's 7 addresses or accounts that we.
Well, it's only 2, because the other 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's 5 accounts that show no usage on their meters. They're reading, but they come back with the same read. So we went through it and determined that it appears that 5 of them are vacant houses. So that would establish why there's no one there to use any water. 2 of them are occupied houses. It's been several years since we've gotten any usage on the meter that they're occupied. We've sent numerous letters with no response, trying to get in there to fix the meter. They didn't know how the board wanted to approach that to get in there to account for the water that they're using. That's the meter equipment is reading correctly, and the numbers aren't changing in the meter.
What are our legal rights? I don't know what we can do legally, because if we do something illegal, it's just gonna make the situation worse. So what are our legal rights there? Can we give them a demand notice and tell them there's a shut off coming if they don't respond, so that we can fix the meter? I don't know if that's legal or not.
So Stacy and I were just reviewing the rules and regs as far as that goes. And there are some avenues of billing procedures. They don't allow us in there. I seem to recall, we were trying to find it just prior to the meeting, that if they deny us access, we can shut the water off at the street.
I would think, that's gotta be
So-
a
That-
possibility.
Yeah, but that's the ultimate, decision. I think we need to make sure that we've done everything and gone one step further than that to make sure that we've tried to reach out to these people.
Are
Do
the
you know whether or
homeowners-
not they own the home or they renting?
I
Well,
don't.
we only have property owners in Cuba, but if the property owner rents their property, we don't have the tenants.
So you've contacted property owners who have not responded.
Correct.
Yeah. So I
Multiple
I
times.
guess maybe we need to find out whether or not there's some way.
The regulations do state that if, when we send these letters out, it
Yeah.
says your meter has, not read any usage in such and such time. It may be an indication of malfunction of the meter. We need to schedule service call to go out there and resolve. We're asking to get in. If they don't respond to us, they're basically saying, it's how it's, especially when they get letter after letter after letter. When they're getting their bills and it's just service charges, they know they're not being charged usage. So the regulations say that the water department is not permitted to install or repair a water meter at any location, or repair or replace an MXU or remote reader at any location to get an accurate reading. The charge for water would be the same as the highest residential water bill of the previous quarter. So I would have to go back to when it last read, find the highest bill charge. But some of these have been like 3 and 4 years.
I gotta,
Ways, and that's not gonna account for the higher rates.
But my recommendation to the board would be that we hand deliver a letter in person to them stating that we need to get in there to verify the operation of the meter. If we're not allowed in at this date, we're gonna shut the water off at the
I
street.
agree.
And it's not gonna be turned back on until such time that we can get in there to evaluate the meter.
I would suggest that one, we ask the Kingston Police Department to send a representative with whoever goes down. So that a member of the water department handing the letter, but it's a member of the police department with them so that there is the legal, don't send somebody along type.
Absolutely.
And give them plenty of notice to make the arrangements. Don't say, here's the letter, we're gonna be here tomorrow. What is the reasonable time period, whatever that is, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is, doesn't make too much difference if it's been 2 or 3 years already, so. But I want
Do
to
we do certified letters? Sorry, do we do certified letters to the property owner too, just in case there's renters?
that's a great idea.
A certified letter to the property owners of record and then hand delivered to the occupants.
Yeah, no, I would treat it much as we do with the turn-off notices. It's just that it could be a case where the meter's just jammed up from a plumbing repair. It could be a case where the meter's been removed and it's sitting on the floor.
As far as the vacant houses, if they're vacant, I would recommend that we basically send a certified letter to the owner. Since the building is vacant, we're gonna turn the water off at the street, and it will not be turned back on until such time as repairs have been made.
I agree.
And they'll be charged the turn-on fee too. Make sure they know they have a turn-on fee that goes with it too, right?
Yeah, you could do that. I'm more concerned about making sure we get it shut off, so we don't know if nothing's reading, we don't
If
know.
a pipe bursts in there.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what I said to
Yeah.
Stacy. It could be a meter that the freeze plate popped out of the bottom of it, and it's going to a dirt floor on the ground, just soaking it up, and we don't know. But it's
Right.
it's not it's right at the meter, and it's not going to register to the meter because the freeze plate is damaged.
You
could be
you
black.
could
It's not
determine, you could totally determine that by listening on the gate valves.
It's tough. We
To some degree.
just had a
Yeah.
house on Main Street that we just read meters. The house has been plowed in, buried in snow. It's not plowed out. In this last quarter, they used over 500,000 gallons of water. So I said, go shut it off. It's vacant. You can't get in touch with the property owner.
Yeah.
And they couldn't hear anything on the key when they shut it off. But the problem stopped. Now we've since gotten in touch with the property owner, and they've taken measures to investigate what's going on. They're out of state. They've been out of state for months. So
But we're not losing any water.
yeah. But I mean, I made that decision.
Yeah.
Based on if you that's a lot of water.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
I think you do the same thing on the vacant properties that you got there. Just shut it off. If there's nobody living there, then when notify the Board of Health as you normally do anyways, but they're vacant, so it's not a big deal.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I want to do our best due diligence to reach out to the property owner to advise them.
Yep.
Like we did with this, we couldn't find any information. Finally, we got in touch with that property owner. I just don't want them to be out of town and come home and, hey, I have no water and what's going on.
Right.
So I'm just trying to take a proactive measure with the most recent one because it's a lot of
Absolutely.
water.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on.
So what's the final decision? We're going to send letters to the 2 properties that we know are occupied either by property owner or tenants. We're gonna send a certified letter to the property owner on record and
Tenant,
then deliver
to the
the
tenants.
letter to
Yeah.
the
With
tenant.
the
Tenant.
police.
With the police.
With an officer with them.
Okay, and then the 5 properties will notify
By certified
by
letter.
certified letter
Then we're just shutting it off.
that we're just shutting the water off
Yeah.
at the street to the property,
Yeah.
to the vacancy. And I can notify the Board of Health that I've done so.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. Okay, we're done with you?
Yeah, no, I just want to put on the record too again that our road crews have been out working very diligently with streets, trees, and parks on the recent snowstorms with snow removal for the town with the streets, trees, and parks, and also they've done a great job maintaining open access to all our sites also. So it's been a long time since they've seen some snow. So
As well as shoveling an awful lot of hydrants.
that's been a collective effort between the residents, the fire department, and our guys have all been collectively doing it. So it's been a good group effort. So job well done by the residents and by the other departments in our department. That's all that I have.
Okay, the new business, we have an abatement request for 296 Pembroke Street. Although we're looking at this late, you told us that it fell through the cracks and they did actually
Yes,
apply in the
within the time frame.
within the
Yep.
time frame. So I think we should handle this the way we handle others until we have a new policy in place. So I would accept the motion to abate that particular bill to the lowest
That's
price.
list here.
Second.
Here, I,
Aye.
okay, we don't have any more business?
So what do you want to do about that abatement policy? Do you want to wait until next month to discuss
I want
it?
to wait till Bob is
Wait
here.
till Bob is
Yeah.
back?
And Bob, make sure you take a look at it so we can get it done that day.
Did he hear that?
We'll do.
Yep, you give me a
Yes,
thumbs
we'll
up.
do. Yep, I got the stuff with me.
Okay, all right.
Any other
And
business?
there's just the memo that you instructed us to send to the planning board regarding 31 Forest Street with the request for the easement.
I would accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Aye.
Bob, have a good
Aye,
safe
aye.
trip.
Bob.
Bob,
Thanks,
how's your
Ed.
mom doing?
Bye, guys.